What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to discuss if Harry Potter Magic Awakened could release in the fall of 2020. Now, this is a tough one, and when I was thinking of what I wanted to do with Harry Potter, I am going to get back into, over the next several videos. I do want to talk about specific aspects. We've talked about, like, a Voldemort, but kind of more like what characters are we going to kind of know from the Harry Potter lore that could be in this game. Last time, we talked about Quidditch, so I've done kind of, like, discussion videos, and I do want to do that in the future for kind of, like, aspects of the game. And if you guys like that, if you guys want me to do more things like that, let me know. I also kind of want to talk about E3 2020, but I feel like it's too early. I want to hold off on that till we get a little bit closer to E3. I've said routinely in these Harry Potter videos, even in like the Rocksteady videos, that I do think E3 2020 is going to be so big for really all of these games that we've kind of heard about: BioShock, Rocksteady, Magic Awakened, possibly. Some of them may not be there, some of them may, but for games that we don't really know, or the games that we know about from kind of like the grapevine, right? We know they exist, possibly, we know they exist for sure, but nobody's talking about them. And I think E3 2020 is that time that they get all brought up, because that's when Next Generation is going to be fully talked about, and then obviously we get all these games that were kind of rumored. So for Magic Awakened, like, I didn't want to take the E3 approach, but I have seen people say, like, could it come out, or it will come out in 2020, will come out with the launch of the next generation consoles. It's tough, and I honestly don't know if it could do it. If you ask me, and you ask me, you have to be completely honest with me, do you think this game is going to come out in the fall of 2020? I really don't think I would say yes. I really feel like it's too soon. However, last year when all these leaks started happening, you also would have assumed that it was happening faster than it really was. So there honestly is like a lot of deception. There's a lot of not necessarily like misinformation, but just stuff that we don't know about that could be happening in the background. We know that they've been working on this game for quite some time now, and here's the thing. I mean, by E3 2020, they could realistically, and we've talked about kind of placing where they were in development time when we first got these leaks. So we got these leaks last October of 2018, and I think even if people would say that it was still in like early development and the leaks, I remember when it first happened, people thought like this was happening tomorrow, like this was a game going to release next year, because the game, it looks like it could be very, very close to being done. I think everybody kind of jumped the ball on that. Everybody was very, very wrong, including myself. I thought that as well. So, and I was just following the pack, and we were all kind of led astray, which is totally cool. But now we kind of can look back and say, all right, well, maybe that wasn't true. Maybe the game was only like a year in development, because after a year, you kind of have those prototypes, you have some systems being worked on. It would be feasible that people would be able to talk about it and say, hey, these are going to be some of the mechanics, and these are going to be some of the aspects in this game. There was the leaked gameplay where we got to see a little bit of it. That's possible. We could have seen that, because if they're working on it for a year and a half, even 2 years, those kind of things would be possible. I think under a year, those things wouldn't even be there yet. They'd still be working on other things. So I really do feel like at the very least, they've been working on this game since the fall of 2017. Probably earlier, but the beginning of 2017 is possible as well. By the time E3 2020 rolls around, it could have easily been 3 years or more since they had started working on this game. So I will give you this. They very well could. And here's the other aspect that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, and even me. I kind of first started off by saying I don't think so. If everything lines up the way it could line up, I do think there is a possibility it comes out in the fall of 2020, and I'll tell you why. If you remember, a couple months ago, one of the main draws with next-generation consoles, and something that Sony said in particular, is they want shorter development time. Now, I personally believe that studios and games in general, they're going to take as much time as they need, right? They're going to take the time that they need to actually be able to complete a project. And I think still the biggest games, whether it's those open worlds, whether it's the Cyberpunks and Rocksteady games and Naughty Dog games, so those are kind of different games, right? Like the Witchers, if they're huge GTAs, if they're that kind of quality and style, or even if they're the Uncharted and Last of Us and God of War, where it's 20, 25, 30 hours, but their story, they're more linear, but they're they're not open world, but they're more linear. Those games, I think, will still kind of always take as long as they have taken. I get that. I think, in general, even those games, the Assassin's Creed, stuff like that, they will take less time. I do believe that. I do believe the draw is to probably get them out slightly sooner. But again, like, I think the systems that the game developers have in place and the publishers have in place, I think they'll try to stick with them. Like, do you want an Assassin's Creed game more than once a year? I get that they have staggered studios working on them, so they do have more time, and maybe that'll lead to a more polished product overall. But again, like, so like like The Last of Us Part 3, I think it would have taken like 4 or 5 years. I still think it'll take 4 to 5 years, even if the PS5 makes it so that they can do it faster. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm getting at. However, if you want to be the opposite side of that and say you believe it, and take the other side and say, well, you know what? Maybe they could make a Last of Us in 3 years or 2 years because of how much better the technology is. In that way, you could argue, hey, Magic Awakened could take less time. You could also argue that if it was always designed to be a next-generation game, which is very, very possible. If they started in 2017, it's very possible that they had next generation in mind. It's possible that it's taken them less time than what you would imagine. Because if you imagine what this game sounds like it's going to be, it sounds like the greatest thing ever. And I know that's a little bit stretching it, but I mean, if you're like a Magic fan or you're like into the Harry Potter kind of universe, it sounds so amazing. And you read all the stuff that they said, and if you saw the gameplay leaks and all that stuff, you look at all that stuff and you're like, wow, like this game can be something truly special. It will probably take them forever to make it. Possibly. It could take them 5, 6, 7 years, and it wouldn't even be all that far off. Again, The Last of Us Part 2 has been being worked on for over 5 years. Games like GTA 5 and games like Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, they take 5+ years, 5, 6 years to make. That's a long time. And so in that case, we could be waiting another 3 years for Magic Awakened for all we know, 3, 4 years. However, like again, if it's going to take less, it could surprise us. It could take less time than we actually think. And another thing is, again, like I've said for all of these games, the Arkham Warner Bros. Montreal game, the Rocksteady games, this is Warner Bros. As the publisher. I know some people will say that the publisher doesn't matter. I don't know why they say that, because the publisher really does matter quite more than people think. Warner Bros. Has the thing where they announce their game and then it comes out rather soon. Even Monolith with the Middle-earth games, those games get announced and then they come out very soon after, within the year. The Arkham games, they always try to come out within 12 months or less of the time that they were announced. Always. They're very, very fast. They are the kind of company, and I like that style. I like both styles. I would prefer actually their style, that you announce the game and it comes out 6 months later, where it's just bam, like you get the announcement, you get all this stuff leading into it, and then you get to play the game. I love that idea. At the same time, Sony, specifically for me, they kind of proved to me that the other way can be done as well, that you can announce the Last of Us Part 2 can be out into the world for this long, and you can still have that anticipation for it, even though by the time it comes out, we'll have already kind of seen it for like 3 years. They can still kind of hold that anticipation, though. Uncharted, they can do that. Any really Sony first-party game is capable of doing that. Kingdom Hearts, to an extent, I think they first started talking about that game way too early. They showed that thing way too early, that like 30-second snippet, which is basically all they had made at that time. There's ways of doing it right. There's ways of doing it wrong. Bottom line is, I think Warner Bros., their style, we know their style. It's release the game within the calendar year, within 12 months of when the game gets announced. That's just what they like to do. That's what their studios do, because they're the publishers for them. They distribute the games out. So for Magic Awakened, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me that if we got like if things really started picking up in 2020, the first half, and with the next gen talk, say if Sony does an event in February, maybe Microsoft does an event in March, we start to hear all these things, E3 2020, bam, we get all these announcements. Is it possible Magic Awakened is there at E3 2020? Yeah, it's very possible. I think the one thing that definitely makes it a little bit more sketchy, or a little bit hard, like not necessarily harder to believe, but like it really kind of could ruin it all, is what do they do with Rocksteady? Does Rocksteady announce their new Justice League or Suicide Squad or whatever game that is? Can that game be announced at E3 2020 and Magic Awakened? Would they allow that? Because they would really kind of take away the hype and people just talking about it, word of mouth. They'd really take that away from each other. However, if Magic Awakened, full reveal, we get like a 10-minute gameplay, they talk about it insanely, everybody saw it, everybody like knows about it, and it's just out there, and that's at E3 2020. I would say it's not all that unlikely that it could come out in the fall of 2020 at that point. Okay, if it's not at E3 2020, it's not coming out, in the fall. That's 100% for sure. It's also possible they announce at E3 2020. It doesn't come out till the spring or even fall of 2021 to coincide with Fantastic Beasts 3. That's very possible too. And a lot of people have said that. Again, I don't think that is a thing that needs to happen. I don't think they've planned it to do that. I think because remember, Fantastic Beasts 3 was delayed. It was actually supposed to come out next year. It was supposed to come out in 2020. It got delayed to 2021. So I don't think their plan all along was we have to release this game with the movie. Like everything needs to just be lined up right next to it. I don't think that was their plan. I think if it happens, it's like a happy coincidence, and a lot of the marketing can go towards that, and actually could work out better for everybody. But I don't think it has to do that. I don't think that was the plan from the beginning, and so I don't think it's the plan now either. It's get the game out when you want, because it could be delayed too. They could say it's going to come out in the fall of 2021, and maybe it gets delayed to spring of 2022. That's possible too. Okay, so it doesn't need to line up with the movie. It would just be kind of like a happy coincidence if it did. So, again, do I think it's coming out in the fall of 2020? I really don't. If it gets fully unveiled at E3 2020, though, and it's like everywhere, and they're showing a lot of it, I think it is possible, though. So I'd put it like 20-30%. If it's not at E3, it's definitely not happening. If it is at E3 2020, I would give it like a 50-50 shot that it could be there, okay? So, guys, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think this game is going to get announced at E3 2020? Do you think this game is going to come out in the fall? Or when do you think the game is going to come out in general? Let me know. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And thank you, as always, for watching. I greatly appreciate your support. More videos, Magic Awaken themes coming up in the future weeks, future months. We'll go back, back and forth kind of, but we'll be talking more about the aspects of the game as well. So thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you all there.